Pete Souza, ESPN, TNT, Big 12, all of it. Man, the BYU Cougars, it's like death, taxes, and Kalani Sitake's BYU Cougars at this point. Preseason, we're talking about a team that in June didn't have a quarterback, and the quarterback they were bringing in had not played spring ball. True freshman, 6'7", 300-pound, just monster beast creature that you created in the lab. And now, man, from a freshman quarterback, he's leading one of the most efficient offenses in the country under Aaron Roderick. And they have won every game in front of them, not played on the road against a top 10 team. It doesn't make any sense to me how they just keep winning, even when America in June counted them completely out.
Well, look, I think the Bear Bachmeier story is amazing because, first of all, nobody saw it coming. I was excited. I was hoping he was going to win the job in camp just because he was the sexiest recruit. And the story I knew was already pretty awesome, right? True freshman, right? Decommitted from Stanford, is going to BYU. His brother's there. I do believe it's in the family and that stuff helps. His brother Hank, being on a huge stage early on, you just kind of see that, you can connect to it. You're not shocked by it, right? I also believe that one of the things that detracts from this story is the delicacy with which the media has to approach it to tell it. Okay. And it's BYU. The whole thing that happened in the offseason with Jake Retzlaff, I don't want to talk about that on my show. Yeah. And in order to talk about Bear, you got to talk about that. And I don't want to talk about that. And so it kind of takes a little bit away from kind of the magic of the story, because truth be told, something ridiculously crazy happened with a player on your team, and he got jettisoned from the program, and this young man had to come out of nowhere, and apparently and I've been around him, I've never actually talked to him, apparently he's got super smart, right? Bear Bachmeier is. He's like a step ahead of everybody mentally, and I do believe that it's the type of athlete that ends up going to a BYU that knows how to put team first and ego aside, and really makes for a story like this to become more possible. And forget the fact he's just dominating on the field, right? He's a dual threat guy. He'll run you over. He'll throw the ball over your head, but he's playing like he's been there before. And I think it's so encouraging that it was a disappointing outcome for BYU in Lubbock, and they bounce right back and take care of business at home against TCU.
Yeah, looked their best against TCU. The fans of BYU were saying, look, we just lost 2 or 3 wins. When your starting quarterback, senior starting quarterback, goes out the window. Yeah. And in comes this kid who in January of 2025, no BYU fan had ever heard of, that no college football fan had ever heard of. And now he's putting up incredible numbers running the football, throwing the football. And you're right, the story starts with a player who is accused of sexual assault. Yeah. And the daunting, just the heavy weight of that, only to find out a week later, hey, allegedly she admits that this wasn't really a thing, and now the onus is off of Retzlaff. He admits that it was consensual, but because it was consensual, it gets a 7-game suspension. The web of this, the intricacy because of what BYU is as an institution and an honor code, I think both of us agree that there's value in that. There's value in the rigor. There's value in it's like when you go to Navy or Army, the expectation is different. You're creating quality human beings. And you say, look, I don't care if you're the starting quarterback. You're going to have to reckon with the honor code. And from there, Pete, would you ever see an SEC school in this scenario look at their senior starting quarterback and say, you know what, we're so committed to our values, you walk out the door, we're going to go with the 18-year-old kid who missed spring ball? Would you ever see that?
No, you would never, ever, ever in your life see that. And I think that's why, kind of deep down inside, I low-key pull for BYU. I would love to see them pull off something special here. Yeah. While they stick to the standard, right, that is there, that Lavelle Edwards coached under, right, that Steve Young played under. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't really want to get with the program like a Jim McMahon, who, we saw his colorful personality later in life. We're not talking about perfect people.
Right.
We're talking about, everybody getting in line and following a certain way of life, which really only can make you better. I'll say one last thing about the Retzov story. This is almost a little inside baseball since we're talking about it. But I know for me, and I would imagine for you, because you did a really nice job of covering it. I don't even know if nice is the word, but you were accurate. You stayed on top of it. That's like microwave clicks. Like as far as traction, like even by just doing my job talking about that situation, I saw my numbers go through the roof on my show, the Pete Souza Show.
Sure.
But I didn't want to keep doing that every day. Like, I'm not some kind of smut peddler. It's not good. It's not a good story. It's not a fun story to cover. And, I want to talk about celebrating college football and celebrating Bear Bachmeier. But it is tough to celebrate Bear without kind of reaching back into that. At least for me it is. And maybe I'm just shaking it off. But that's why I'm answering a specific question here. That is why Bear Bachmeier may not be getting as much love as he maybe should be, for sure should be. Yeah. And also I think it's BYU, they don't get the respect they deserve. They should get more respect, period.
Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Tim Tebow, like really good freshman campaigns that were not in the face of controversy. They didn't have to step in for the guy who had like this witch hunt claim fall through the honor code system. It's just so
you're juggling with chainsaws when you start that.
It's brutal, and Bear Bachmeier does, and we beat the dead horse there. Wish that it was covered more from the national media. I think it should be. Can I show you a clip that I still have loaded in here?
Please.
This is the third and 11 where Bear Bachmeier runs a touchdown against Utah, carries the guy into the end zone. This is the view. Credit to the BYU social team. This is the view from the field. This is actually Fox's social team. Listen to the crowd. The three as he's running.
See this what I'm showing you? You can't see it through my hairy arm. That's what goosebumps look like.
I mean, that's why we watch college football.
Yeah.
That's why we do college football is that. And I think the rest of the country is over. They're missing it. We get so hung up on, but can Alabama work its way back into the SEC championship that we miss the reasons we actually love the sport.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I will say this. It's such a great point you make. And I think if BYU continues to win and has success, that story we just talked about that you and I have told over and over again, and maybe have a little fatigue connected to, that will be talked about, before the college football playoff game that BYU, they'll rehash it, but it's more like a one and done story. It's not like a rewatchable per se. But that moment right there, that culmination that you just showed, gave me goosebumps, and it was like, that is raw college football. One more thing I'll tell you about this situation that is it just came to mind. Imagine if Retzov was like, you know what? I love BYU. I still believe this is my best opportunity. I'm going to take it on the chin, serve a 6-7 game suspension, and then come back. 6, 7, yeah.
Nice, you did it. You did it to yourself.
You did it. But yeah, I wonder what a controversy we would have brewing for ourselves, right? If right now that was the situation we were looking at.
I can't even. I figured that a few weeks ago. Of like, this would be the week where he comes back.
Yeah.
But you can't. The kid's just so good. Middle of the field. Chase Roberts found him. Middle of the field. Parker Kingston found him deep. Chase Roberts. He just escaped.
And the one thing about their loss to Texas Tech, that you mentioned Parker Kingston, so it triggered a memory. He muffs a punt. That guy's never going to do that again in his life. And so they had 3 turnovers that they coughed up, and Texas Tech didn't turn it over once. They took full advantage. If those teams meet again and BYU can take care of the football, we are going to have one hell of a football game.
I think so. People like to talk about how it was a few plays away from 46-10 or 46-7 Texas. It was a few plays away from 21-17.
3 turnovers to none. You're going to lose it every time.
Absolutely, especially against that Tech defense. Pete, this is the longest show in Locked On Big 12 history, but I can't. Every time I get you on.
Hey, by the way, watch Landman. There's a Big 12 mention in Season 2, Episode 1. I saw that. I sent it to Drake. I was like, the Big 12 is having a real moment. Yeah.
They're just naming mascots for fun.
Literally, they should have a scene in Landman where somebody's watching Drake Toll and Locked On 12, right, Locked On Big 12 on their phone, and that's in the background over Ali Larder's shoulder. That's what we need.
And to me, showing a Big 12 highlight on ESPN Plus of Pete Souza just touchdown. It's good.
Let's go,
Pete. I know that every listener of Locked On Big 12 has seen your stuff, and they probably already follow you and your Big 12 coverage. But if they don't, by the rare chance they don't, where can they find you?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not hard to find, right? Pete Souza on Instagram, Petey Souza on Twitter, and then the Pete Souza Show. And then, calling games. My next basketball game is Kansas State and Seton Hall at Bramblage. I'm pumped for that. And then, obviously, college football inside the 12. I have a game this weekend, but I'm pumped. But it's an American game. It's UAB and USF. And then Peacock. I got a couple games basketball coming up. I know I have one game in December and 3 or 4 in January, which I'll be at BYU for one of those games. So I'm pumped, man. Yeah.
What's the BYU game?
I forget it.
All right, great.
I think it might be UCF, but I forget.
But look, Marriott Center either way is going to be just.
Let's go.
That place is nuts. It's Pete Souza of, I can say ESPN, TNT, NBC at this point. I just don't. All of the letters. You just put a letter together, and Pete probably represents it somewhere in there. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.